Bait to blackmail, game over when Meghan wants money and royal silences about fake kids. There are some people who are really upset with King Charles right now because they're saying that it looks like he's lying and he's taking all his orders from this escort who has trashed the UK, trashed the monarchy, and made absolute fools of the citizens. And it seems like Charles really is afraid of Meghan while Parliament doesn't do anything and just ignores her. As Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. But today, there's a royal insider speaking out claiming that the problem Meghan faces is the financial impact of divorce. On marriage, she must have thought she had hit the jackpot, snagged a prince from a wealthy family. Sounds great, doesn't it? But then they stepped back from royal duties, and that's when the wheels started to fall off. First of all, they didn't get any more money from the sovereign grant. Well, okay, Harry's got that inheritance money, and William got the Duchy of Cornwall, and they had the one of Sussex. Oh, but wait a minute. There is no money or land in the Duchy of Sussex. It's simply a title. Okay, well fine, but there is the money from Diana's will and the Queen Mother's too, and probably they got a bit from the Queen's as well. But they have blown such a big portion of that money from Diana, partially by moving to California and needing to pay for private security, and the money from the Queen Mother's will is tied up in a trust, so we can't really count that anyway. And then there is the money the two of them have made in the US from their deals. I'm not sure how much Spotify ended up actually paying out, but the deal was canceled. And what about Netflix? Okay, well, that's an interesting situation because it would be the money from the deal that they landed, plus, of course, any repeat fees from reruns of Suits. So now officially they would have joint income. Because of the way they spend money like there's no tomorrow, it could be that Meghan finds herself less well off than she was before they got married, and also with no hope whatsoever of getting any work in the future because her reputation is in the toilet. Right now, I think it's safe to assume that Meghan Markle is desperately trying to figure out some way to hang on to Harry, while also hating the fact that she has trashed any chances of being wealthy, popular, and successful with anybody outside of the Sugars. And there's also another thing I've started to worry about. I mean, I know this sounds scary and it might sound sick, but I can't help but wonder if the end of this whole game is going to be some violent death of one or both of them. Harry's already admitted that he suffers from a few mental health problems, like PTSD, and he also is guilty of drug abuse, while Meghan supposedly has drinking problems, and she's been accused of being a really vicious bully before, too. In my opinion, this relationship is dangerous. It wouldn't take much for things to go terribly wrong. But a source has said Charles doesn't fear her. They are taking the correct steps when dealing with a psychopathic narcissist. I believe the goal is to say nothing publicly, do nothing publicly, and get Harry and the child to a safe place out of the public eye. Once that's accomplished, the boom will be lowered on her. It's true, we don't know what is happening behind closed doors at the palace. I think it's important for Harry to be eradicated first. Meghan Markle is insane. Another thing is, does anybody believe that eliminating those titles is going to do anything to stop Meghan? Oh, it's only going to enrage her, and then she's going to go on a rampage out of reach on another continent. And the British police, or really any agency sent by Charles, would be operating illegally in the US if they try to get Harry, so their hands are basically tied. Meghan Markle is a U.S. citizen, and she's living in the U.S., and so she realizes, as does Charles, that royal family protocol and the will of the British people simply doesn't mean anything in the U.S. Meghan is using her U.S. constitutional right to freedom of speech, even though she tells a bunch of lies. We've got to keep in mind that Meghan Markle never became a British citizen, and that was on purpose. As a U.S. citizen, Meghan has no obligation to demonstrate loyalty to Britain or the Crown. So exactly what is Charles going to be able to have leverage over? I suspect that silence on the part of the royal family is continuing to work. They gave them more than enough rope to hang themselves, and they are definitely at the end of that rope now. You know, it also makes me think about how Meghan has this obsession with the royal family, and this is why. The results really speak for themselves, and her downfall is all but assured. And it has not gone unnoticed, the you don't know, the tabloids, but unfortunately, most of what is known about Meghan is true. Meghan revealed who she really is through her horrible behavior. And if there really is a little boy named Archie who has been paraded around very seldomly as Meghan and Harry's kid, then it's natural for members of the public to ask about his welfare, which was written about even before this pending divorce. If he's real, then he is the grandson of the king, and his welfare is their business considering the way that poor boy has been hidden from the public. In conclusion, the British royal family finally has washed their hands clean of this whole Harry and Meghan mess. They have been released from the rental agreement of Frogmore Cottage. They weren't invited to the Trooping the Colour ceremony this year. They're not going to be invited to the family get-together on September 8th at Balmoral to commemorate the late Queen. This lack of invitations to important family events tells us all we need to know. They're not wanted anymore. They're not needed anymore within the family. Honestly, though, who needs enemies when you got a family like those two? At least the family can finally be free to mourn the late Queen's passing together, to talk about personal, private family stuff when it came to the Queen, and they don't have to worry about the fact that it's going to get back to the media or end up in one of Meghan and Harry's books. I'm sure it is such a relief for the royal family. Another thing is, after Meghan stole the late Queen's jewelry that she let her borrow, she took photos of little Princess Charlotte's bedroom, and she was such a nasty bully to her too. Meghan Markle could never be welcomed back. Why would she? I mean, if Harry by himself would be accepted, I'm not sure. It might depend on who is the reigning king at that time. Bullying the staff is also a pretty big deal to the royal family. It just shows how Meghan Markle is a piece of trash. Treating people like real humans is a standard in the royal family. So Meghan screaming and shouting at them, throwing hot tea on a dignitary, and acting like a piece of gutter trash is simply unacceptable. And Harry has shown that he's basically just as bad. Poor, poor millionaire prince. I'm sure it's a big relief to not have those two around. As far as I can see, Harry and Meghan are also just too dramatic. It must be incredibly hectic being around them. Who needs that? King Charles is playing his hand perfectly. They're going to refuse to attend any family gathering that they get invited to because it's not like they can introduce those children. If there are surrogates involved in hiding the truth, if somebody's been paid for using their children and allowing those children to be used as props, then shame, shame, shame on them. It's important that DNA testing happens to end this whole mess so that finally the king can reign in peace and later on William. Who would want to have family members like them around, people who are looking to sell their every secret to the highest bidder, while also making sure to add their own truth to the story? Reportedly, Meghan was also making the staff members at WME refer to her as Duchess, and making her own household employees call her Duchess too. She was making them curtsy to her, and she told them that they were never allowed to speak to her unless they were spoken to. She uses stationery with her initials and a crown on it, and she uses that title to bully other people and to make demands on businesses. Without those titles, let's remember, Meghan and Harry are nothing. My news today has ended. What did you think about it? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments. If you preferred our video today, don't be afraid to like and share with your friends and relatives who would like it anytime you want. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.